trickster with the uncanny ability to run really quick.
Wanna see me run to that mountain and back? You wanna see me do it again?
The word hero has been given many meanings and connotations throughout literature and human history in general, but usually it has intersected with concepts such as altruism and self-sacrifice. The archetypical hero is someone who sets out to defeat evil, uphold justice, and save the day, all while being relatively unconcerned with their own desires and well-being. This is an image that has crystallized itself through history and through mostly transcends cultures and groups across the globe. So, when you, regardless of who you are, hear the title My Hero Academia, there is a certain expectation that's placed, namely to find and recognize these archetypical images of the hero. However, there is a slight issue. My Hero Academia characters are kinda petty. Contrary to the connotations of the heroic story, a lot of the characters in the series have their motivations and behaviors founded in pretty small, irrelevant, and sometimes straight up childish bases. This is seen in a small scale with people like Uraraka, who only wants to become a hero for the money, or Mineta, who is on the hunt for fame which will bring him female attention. On the other hand, you get characters like Bakugo, who base their hero journey on a foundation of a desire for superiority and dominance, and, in an extreme case, Endeavor, who torments his family endlessly on his quest to unimpeded glory. This tendency of pettiness puts them all very close to their counterparts, the villains, who at a glance also share this quality. Be it Gentle becoming an outlaw because of a selfish wish to be recognized, or Shigaraki vowing to destroy everything because, why not? Pettiness penetrates every corner of Hiroaka's world. And that's the point. Let me explain. You could take everything I just said at face value and just say, oh, I guess they're all just petty then, and leave it at that. But that would be very reductive and would be ignoring most of the framework around these instances of pettiness. Because, in most cases, that pettiness has a clear reason and place both within the associated character and the story. Because there are multiple angles to approach this, and because I'm an English student and have brain rot, let's look at the function and presence of pettiness in 3 distinct sections. One first thing the inclusion of this pettiness does is that it humanizes the characters quite significantly. Remember the hero definitions I was busting out in the intro? Well, one general challenge all classic fictional figures need to tackle is the question of humanization. How much do you want your hero or character to just be a symbol versus a human being? The larger-than-life figures may work excellently in clearly and unambiguously communicating themes, concepts, and messages, but are not as efficient at emphasizing human struggles, whereas more human figures excel at that at the cost of their symbolic and thematic clarity. This becomes increasingly important when talking about a fundamental conflict like good versus evil. Depending on your priorities, you might want to keep your characters rather on one side or the other. For example, if you're crafting something like a fable or a symbolic tale where the main point is to be an ideological or conceptual vessel, keeping your characters more as larger-than-life symbols will do the trick. Meanwhile, if your idea is to create a story based on direct, minute human moments, the human side is more your shtick. This isn't a black and white universally valid spectrum by any means, but these tendencies do crystallize themselves in quite a few stories and their creation processes. Hiroaka decides to put its focus squarely on the human side, while still occasionally flirting with the larger-than-life side. To illustrate, let's look at an easy example, Ochako Uraraka. When read on a wiki page, as I know some of you do, her motivations seem incredibly small-minded. Get money. But when looked within context, it makes a lot of sense. In Hiroaka, being a hero is just a job, and a very well-paying one at that. So someone being born into a poor but loving family with a quirk that would work well for a hero, wanting to chase that profession to earn money and also support their parents is very human. It expresses both the streamlined, capitalistic nature of heroism in this world and Uraraka's caring nature. It is also this nature that is later used to mature her, when the death of Night Eye causes her to realize that not only is there a lot of suffering in the world, but she has the power to prevent some of it, and that it is therefore her duty to do so. So her petty initial goal sets up a trait of her character which combines with her journey through the story to get her one step closer to becoming a more classical heroine, while still being founded on a goal that is very understandable. Money is great. I love money. Give me This pattern of humanization is used all throughout Hero Aka, like with Bakugo's childish superiority slowly giving way to an admission of his flaws. This is also not just limited to heroes. Every character in the story can be touched by this idea. Gentle's drive can, on paper, seem relatively empty at first, yet famous. But when you consider the horror of being forgotten in a society that idolizes immortal fame as the only real way of validation, his motivation is an incredibly human and understandable one. And again, this pettiness later gives way to true altruism when he decides to not only spare Midoriya the pain of having his festival ruined, but also doing his very best to make sure La Brava doesn't get incriminated alongside with him. So, as you can see, the presence of pettiness in Hero Aka is consistently used to humanize its characters on their journey to larger-than-life symbols. It turns cartoony caricatures into human characters. The presence of pettiness is also utilized to continuously complicate the world of Hero Aka. Many characters within the story have their position and generally expected qualities subverted and contextualized by a hearty degree of pettiness, which makes them and their relation to the story's moral narrative a lot more complicated. Tomato tomato, Endeavor. As the top hero after the Kamino incident, he is the man who is responsible for helming all of Hero Society and leading it to prosperity and peace. He, while not unilaterally beloved as All Might, is the pillar that has to hold the fabric of daily life together. But he is also the man who started his journey to heroism and glory out of a petty desire for dominance over the established number one, a desire that led him to torment his family for 2 whole decades. The symbol of justice is nothing more than a sad, selfish man bent on proving himself superior. However, this is then again contrasted with his overwhelming competence at being a hero. As the Endeavor Agency mini-arc shows, becoming a professional at this level is an enormous achievement, and Endeavor has saved countless lives with that expertise. The inclusion of his petty initial goal contrasts with his position within society to make him a more complicated fellow to understand and feel about, which is good because it makes him more interesting to follow. Many other heroes have similarly petty initial motivations, like Mount Lady being the hero equivalent of a titty streamer. These small inclusions make the positions as heroes a lot less clear-cut, which gets pretty juicy once you compare them with the villains. One of my favorite examples for this approach is Stain. He is superficially a very clear symbol, a man with an ideology that lights the people aflame and heralds many of the developments of the story. His influence is immense, still to this day. Therefore, he is, narratively speaking, in a position where he should be a larger-than-life symbolic entity, someone who embodies his ideals so strongly that they permeate throughout the entire story. However, once you take a closer look at him, this reveals itself to not be entirely true. His ideals sound pretty grand at the surface, but what is his actual game plan? How does he intend to make heroism great again? The answer is, he doesn't have an answer. Stain doesn't offer any solutions or ideas, he just kills in the vague hope that it wakes society up. More importantly, his murderous quest is based pretty much only on his personal disillusionment with society. In short, he is an angry tween who hates society and wants to kill instead of actually advocating for any practical solutions. The embodiment of pettiness. This is not only in stark contrast to his supposed role in the story as the revolutionary messiah, but also an interesting point of alignment with the series' true main villain, Shigaraki. Angry tween who hates society and wants to kill is a somewhat apt description of him too, after all. However, with Shigaraki, this pettiness is evolved and elaborated into something bigger. Not a selfish desire to see the world changed, but rather a profound nihilism stemming from real experience with the world failings. Combined with his newly formed PLF, Shigaraki brings with him a strong ideological force, which is itself a stark contrast to the more small-minded hero side. The PLF, as much as they are led by Shigaraki, who is a bit of a nihilistic lunatic, are a force that presents itself as completely devoted to Destro's ideology of liberation, which is again a more outspoken and more defined ideology than anything we see on the hero side. And again, it is not founded in just pettiness, even if Shigaraki's initial development did have that sort of vibe with him. In short, pettiness pops up consistently as a means to complicate the various character situations within the plot, and make the whole shebang just that more interesting to follow, as conflicts form naturally. Lastly, the presence of pettiness is, like pretty much any aspect in Hero Aka, there to reinforce some of its central themes. I would like to revisit this specific point in a later video, but to set the stage real quick. One of the most central and also sometimes overlooked thematic cores of Hero Aka is the idea of the generational shift. Many elements of the story and characters strongly emphasize and hone in on the questions of how a society progresses from one generation to the other on a macro scale, and how individual people contribute to that shift in the micro scale. This is seen especially well in how the series essentially creates a divide between two eras, Prime All Might and Post All Might, and Pettiness embellishes that divide. When we talk about larger-than-life heroic figures, symbols of concepts, it's safe to say that no one in Hero Aka fits the description better than All Might. He is righteous, powerful, inspiring, grand, and overall the de facto glue that keeps society together. But, and this is a crucial bit, he doesn't really have any motivations or goals. His driving thought is a simple and vague "I must protect society," which just further emphasizes just how much of a classical figure he really is. And it is this figure that everyone else in the story fails to live up to. By having the story filled with these flawed heroes, people aiming to be ideals but falling short of it, weighed down by their human small-mindedness, the story distinguishes between the All Mights and the not All Mights of the world quite harshly. But this doesn't mean that those who aren't unflinching symbols of altruistic justice are wrong. We see that All Might's unilateral reign as the shining beacon has left society over-reliant and vulnerable, unable to cope with his absence. Moreover, as feelings towards heroism in general begin becoming more grey and complicated, a simple "I want justice" hero like All Might just ain't gonna cut it anymore. So the simplicity of the Prime All Might era gives way to the more human complexity of the Post All Might era, a shift that is in part also communicated through the various instances of the newer generations having more grounded, human, and yes, even petty goals. So, the pettiness of the newer generation ends up fleshing out the theme of the generational shift quite significantly, as society scrambles to find beacons of hope in the more complicated, petty, post-All Might world. In conclusion, pettiness is continuously present within the characters of Hero Aka. However, that presence is intentional and utilized pretty well for various goals, most notably the humanization, complication, and thematization of various story elements and characters. Or maybe I am just insane, who knows. I went without seeing a person for 2 months and then had exams for another 3 weeks. My brain is literally broken. Bye. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you had a wonderful time. If you wish to support the channel more, you can like the video, subscribe, ring the bell, or if you really want to help me out, you can also go down to the link in the description and support me over on Patreon. You can pay whatever amount you want, you become a patron, and you put your name at the end of every one of my videos if that is something you're interested in. Thank you so much again for your time, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.